One of the major pain as we started this conversation is around the lack of skill set. And we also spoke about a lot in terms of automation, where not only from an analysis point of view, but response and remediation is equally going to be a game changer from an automation point of view. And yes, it is evolving for good. Now, as we spoke about during the conversation, that it takes over 100 days for an organization to completely respond and remediate to an attack. I mean, it's a global average, and it may change from organization to organization. Um, what are those important parameters that training should be made a mandate? And at the same time, one of the major aspects that we see is the training can just not be redundant anymore, because things are changing big time from a attacker's perspective as well. And the second piece is, how should board look at this particular problem, right? So at the end of the day, it is unfortunately it is not numbers game when you have a cyber attack. It is there is a lot that is involved from an analysis point of view, and your reputation is at stake. The businesses are completely starved, clients are completely lost, and clients are not sure if they are being impacted. So the perimeter is only increasing. What do you think, the uh, from a board point of view, how they should approach this problem? A, from a training point of view. B, from a ownership point of view. Harsha, you may want to take that question, please.
Sure. I think as I touched upon, right, like training is one of the most essential aspect, right? Like, and then see, we have to take a call. Like some organizations say that we want to handle everything internally. We don't want. So what is that we can chew, right? Like, or what is that we can handle? It should be very clear when they do the risk assessment, right? Like, what are the risks they want to mitigate themselves, what they want to transfer it to someone else. Like, it should be very clear, and based on it should start from there, and then from there they have to have a strategy for each one of it. So that's where I think they take a one shot approach, that either we are going to manage service, or we are going to internal. It's not very clear cut strategy. So that's where the training will be a main thing. If they are going to go internal, there are so many aspects where team has to be trained. They have to be better with the technology which they are implementing, identify the false positives in a better manner, do L1, L2. Lot of aspects, like interpret the threat intelligence and apply to the tools,
Yes.
do a threat hunt. Just so many things, right? Doing correlation and other. So, uh, so it all depends on what organizations want to do, but they have to have go one step back and understand, like, uh, am I handling it effectively, and do I have the resources appropriately to handle this? If they don't have, there are so many organizations across the globe um, who have like experienced resources, and it can be switched to multiple providers also based on the risk they want to transfer, right? But at least if they have a policies, like the main ones I'll say is like a BCP and DR, right? That's when the major issues happen, and then somebody has to get back as quickly as possible. I think situations, for those situations, definitely we have to train. At least ransomware is the main thing these days. So how you will ensure that you know how to act when a ransomware happens, that needs to be trained. Basic threat modeling on common issues, and when to raise an alarm, that has to be trained. So there are a lot of aspects. Again, it's not a straightforward approach, right? It's a constant thing, and a lot of simulations have to be done. Like, if you see the number of simulations are done across the board, it's very less compared to what it needs to be. That's why we see so many attacks happening, because people are not used to the sudden rush of incidents which are happening in last 18 months. So that I think I would say, like, training is important. but at the same time, we have to identify how much ever you train. You can't train on like 10 different elements and do a great job. So a logical approach has to be taken. At least that's what I see would be a right choice.
Fantastic. And Shamak, what is your perspective around this, both from a business and technology point of view? We spoke a lot about automation. We spoke about ownership. We also at length, or rather at a high level, spoke about the training piece. What is your perspective around this scenario, and how do you think organization can reap benefits from having a better IR plan, or rather a structured IR plan?
Well, humans are the weakest link, not just like I started, not just in the as an end user, but also as a, incident managers and, the incident response team. So I feel that, we need to have a continuous, training process, training cycle that the organizations need to adopt. Some of them can be something like, conducting periodic exercises and drills like Harsha mentioned, which can be BCP, DR, as basic as that.
Sure.
To the technology drills like red teaming, blue teaming exercise to really train and gauge the strength of the control, strength of the team that exists.
Absolutely.
So that they can continuously calibrate and optimize or add on more resources, specific skills if there's a lag, right? This has to be a continuous process, right? I think that is important to this world. I heard you saying board and the CXOs. I think we need to have the CXOs come on a common room, and run a tabletop exercise kind of session for the CXOs where we simulate attack, and we see how prepared we are in handling. And it can be something like, is this the first breach of the organization? If the media calls, who is going to respond to the media? What will be the roles of other department, IT, legal? If there's a subcontractor, is the procurement going to play a role? So the whole thing has to be planned and staged, before the actual incident hits us. That is the preparedness. That is the skill that we need to build, not on the technical side only, but also on the business side, which is, not happening, adequately. It happens, but it just kind of, a checkbox or a tick box kind of activity, very basic. But we need to really be serious that we can be the next one. There's no guarantee no one is going to hit us, and someone can already be planning. Let's be prepared for that, right? So yeah. So I think the alternate to be fully prepared is to be ready for the unwanted event. That's all I can say.
Sure. That's a wonderful insight from both of you gentlemen. And before we wind up for today, let me summarize the entire discussion. A few of the things that are coming out really wide and open is the kind of data that we are ingesting today should be really thought of, and data is going to be critical from a decision point of view, which essentially means that fundamentally, we need to ensure that the operations, both from technology, people, and process, can just not be siloed anymore. And this is where the biggest weakling is, and that siloed approach is being brought by the human, as Shamak suggested. So the fundamental root cause is, how do we cut down on those silos from people and process point of view, while we ensure that the technology enables them to take wider decisions or cohesive decisions, if I will, while responding to a specific incident. And a panic mode is not going to help, because that may even make things worse. One of the perspectives for the ransomware, right? So when an organization takes a hit of ransomware, and as an organization, they are in a pressure to decide, am I supposed to pay and am I not supposed to pay? The board kicks in and says, hey, you know what? Let's go and pay. And majority of times we see that it's not discussed. It doesn't come out wide open. But the larger question is, once you're paid, is the data secure? Because you do not know the other party was actually attacked you, right? So those are multiple things that rewire at a time when crisis hits big time. Hence, the board should be trained efficiently. There has to be an ownership within the board as well while an incident stops by. And it just cannot be a siloed approach from a people, process, and technology anymore. And training is going to bring in a lot of value in terms of ensuring that the silos are not being built in at a time when there is crisis within the organization.